Welcome to Great Episodes in Gibbs History, presented by Gibbs Farm, a program of Ramsey County Historical Society. My name is Sammy, and today I'll be telling you the story of how Jane and Heman Gibbs met, fell in love, and were married. Spoiler alert, there's a love triangle and some heartbreak. I am telling the story of how Jane and Heman met today because next week we'll be celebrating their anniversary. It's November 18th, 1848. So today I'll be paraphrasing their story from the book Little Bird That Was Caught by Lily Bell Gibbs, and that was Jane and Heman's youngest daughter, and she wrote this story based off of the stories that her mother Jane would tell her as a child. The story starts in early 1848, and at this time, Jane is Jane DeBow, not Gibbs yet, and often goes by Janie, so you'll hear that a lot in the story. She's living in Elizabeth, Illinois, just outside Galena, with an older blind woman named Mrs. Davis that she is helping with household chores. That's why she's living with her. And the story itself that I'll be reading from begins at Charlotte Little's home, and that is Heman Gibbs' sister. Come over next Saturday evening, Heman. I left a basket at Mrs. Davis's to be filled with plums from her tree. Janie DeBow is to bring them Saturday evening. Mrs. Little turned away, not waiting for her brother's reply. I don't like to be a matchmaker, the young woman thought, but Heman wants to meet her. Who was at the gate with you, Janie? Mrs. Davis inquired. What, that Mr. Gibbs? Janie said. Mrs. Davis replied, It's the second time he has walked home with you from evening service. What will Charlie Plummer think? Well, Charlie isn't here, said Janie, though I almost wish he was. But that wish was not spoken. It was only a wish that drifted lightly through her mind. Charlie had taken her to the circus in Galena. Charlie had walked with her in the moonlight, and he had talked to her of his new work in the warehouse in Galena. But I'll come back, Janie. Cy Turner wants a partner in his store. Yes, he had felt sure that she would be waiting for him. Little did Charlie know that Heman Gibbs would soon sweep Jane right off her feet. Janie, are you really keeping company with Heman Gibbs? He's a school teacher and so much older. Betsy's voice trailed, and she looked puzzled as she questioned Janie. Betsy is Jane's friend. Well, he comes to see me sometimes, Jane answered with a mischievous smile. Somebody called me an old maid the other day. I suppose most girls get married before they're 20. Well, I guess things were a little bit different back then. The girls were picking wild grapes, and as they filled their baskets, they talked of choir practice and of the new boarding house by the town hall. Oh, how the town is growing, said Betsy, but there's so many lead miners. Heman Gibbs writes and reads the letters for them because many of them can't read, said Jane. Well, you seem to have forgotten all about Charlie Plummer, Janie. The sun is going down. We must hurry home. So Heman visited Jane's home that evening at Mrs. Davis's house, and Miss Davis overheard him helping Jane with chores, so he filled up the wood box for her, he filled up the water pail, and then they played a game of checkers in which Miss Davis was suspicious on whether or not Jane actually won or if Heman let her win. A few days later, Jane is speaking with Mrs. Davis. Betsy is coming for me tonight, and Maggie Moffat too, Janie said while preparing for midweek song service. Heman has gone to Fairplay, Mrs. Davis. He will be there 3 weeks. Janie, did he say anything before he went away? Yes, Mrs. Davis, Janie said, almost in a whisper. He has asked me to marry him. You don't object, do you? I'll be sorry to lose you, Janie, but if it must be, I'm glad that it's Heman Gibbs. Older than you, perhaps, but everything that is honorable. Those 3 weeks had gone by. Heman was back in Elizabeth, and him and Jane were talking about their future plans. What about California, Janie? Heman Gibbs said one day to the young woman at his side. The gold rush is on. Wagon trains pass through here nearly every day. California is so far away, said Janie. Heman, I'd like to go up the river. The country's beautiful around Wabasha, and I wish you could see Lake Harriet. I'm looking into the prospects around there too, said her fiancé. We could take up land. I'll write to William Marshall. He happens to be living in St. Paul. and that is as far as the steamboats go. At that point, plans were made for a November wedding for the couple. Soon it was November 18th, 1848, Jane and Heman's wedding day. You might be wondering where Charlie Plummer is at this point. Well, Jane's friend Betsy heard that the morning of their wedding, he rode away on his horse, exclaiming, "I'm going away where I won't hear those bells today." Well, Charlie, maybe you should have put a ring on it. And as Lily records the newlyweds' departure from Elizabeth, she describes the following scene as accompanied by much waving of hands and kerchiefs. Heman Gibbs looked down at his fair young bride. She is looking clear-eyed and hopeful at the hills beyond. With Heman beside her, she is ready and eager to go back to the land so recently a part of her childhood. There were visions of the home that might be theirs, visions destined to come true. Thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like it and to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you won't miss another episode of Great Episodes in Gibbs History.